And welcome. This is Nil Gravity and my new series, How Not to Make Comics, where I basically confront my flaws and see if you guys can learn from them, because I don't seem to. We're going to start off with my series, Weight of Eternity, which is at woe.thecomicseries.com, and you can go check that out. So you can go ahead and read ahead. I think we're going to do like the first 10 pages or whatever. Check that out, because from this point on there's going to be spoilers. I will put a link in the description, hopefully. So I tend to forget little details like that. So anyways, I started the series out with a little vignette, because this is, even though I get into this like huge story that's like 100 pages long, that's not what I originally intended for the series. I was just trying to set up his relationship with I was trying to set up the protagonist relationship with this character. Basically, that was like the jumping off point for the modern age, because we'll get into the concept of the book and stuff maybe in another episode, because there's something I want to talk about with this. So in this issue, it starts out with this woman on a date. I was working on a few things here. I think I originally drew this wide format and then changed it because I was going to submit it to anthology or something. So this is me trying to like fill up the empty space to a degree and play with the lettering. And then another thing that's going on here is I was trying to make it like a perspective exercise. I like to kind of challenge myself inside the pages. It's where like most people would just do this kind of work in their sketchbook. I try to like practice inside the page, which is really stupid. But it's just I don't know. Like I said, this is why you guys need to learn from my mistakes. I also see that I have like a weird line here. Yeah, that I never completed. But yeah, and I think at some point I tried to fix this digitally, but then I lost that version of the file, and so when I came back to Weight of Eternity to put it up on the Comic Fury, I did not feel like fixing it again. So yeah, and I seem to be making her neck long a lot. I didn't realize I did that. I should point out that I'm about to turn 39 in a few days, and I did this when I was like 22 or something like that. Yeah, I was around 22 at the time. Okay, so next up, and this is where I get into the vignette of the story, or the concept of the story. It's basically this girl goes on a date with this guy that she likes, and the subtext, the story, the idea of it is that she's deciding if she wants to sleep with him or not. Yeah, and and she doesn't want to be slutty or whatever. Wow, those are super generic flowers. Holy shit. I did not. There was no Google back when I started this. We had like Metacrawler, and I don't even know if I had that in my office. So some of this I might have even drawn on the train. Yeah, I tried to make her have like a different look, but I don't know how. Yeah, and in some places it really kind of cost me, but I really, one of the things that I made a mistake on early on was that I was kind of obsessed with the fact that like Jim Lee, he basically draws the same women and just changes their hairstyle. And I don't remember if So that always kind of bothered me. People who just draw the same face on everybody and then change the styling. See, what I should have done was learn how to draw a face, and then try to make everybody like have distinct looks and stuff after I established like a baseline. But I tried to skip that step, and it didn't work out for me. So, now one thing I tried to do to be stylized, I do not like putting the eyes where they actually belong. So I should have put the eyes like here, and then moved the cheekbone down a little, because the eyes are like this about the middle of the head, and I like them at the like 3/4 mark. It's just what looks right to me. So it's one of those things that, your style is your accumulation of your shortcuts or your accumulation of your mistakes. And I've tried to embrace it as to make a style, but it hasn't really worked for me. And I also see that I was having trouble with this here. I must have been doing select areas and then not doing the fills. Okay. Quiet, dog. Oh my god. Alright. Oh, Jesus, why? Okay, so someone slammed a car door and it made my chow chow start barking. Alright, at the time I was drawing this, actually now that I think about it, this was one of the first things I did. So I was 20 or 21, and one of the themes of this first episode that I want to talk about is like representation and stuff. So this is it's significant that I made the character black. I like how I left her teeth shaded in. That was kind of, I don't know, I'm surprised I didn't make them white. Maybe I was afraid of, I don't know what my stylistic choice there was. See, this is the panel where this is how she's supposed to look, okay? Like, this is what I wanted the character to kind of look like, I think. Well, I don't know. Because I kind of like the previous page, too, actually. Yeah, I'm not sure. Okay. I'm trying to remember the timeline on a lot of this stuff, too, so. Oh my god, it is driving me nuts. See, I have both my dogs in here, and they're just making a ton of noise. I don't even know if it'll get picked up. Alright. So, anyways, this is the other aspect of... so I wanted to point out, too, that part of the reason I was thinking about representation at this time was I did this either during or right after my first like serious relationship, which was like an interracial relationship, and so even though back then we weren't talking about representation quite the same we do now, it was kind of on my mind. Even though I never had any kind of problem, like anytime my girlfriend at the time and I went out, like everybody would tell us like what a cute couple we were and stuff. So it was like so it was on my mind, even though like I know that I got into it with people because they said you can't date interracially without being criticized, and it's like nope, no one's ever said anything to us, or no one's ever given us a hard time. So yeah, so that was on my mind at this time. And but what's going on here in the story is I'm just kind of playing with the passage of time as she's thinking about snooping in his medicine cabinet, because she's trying to decide if she wants to sleep with him. And so she looks in his medicine cabinet, and it's full of shaving cream, and there's a drawer full of razors. I got this idea. Oh yeah, this was definitely after my first girlfriend, because it was my second girlfriend who I was at her parents' house, and they I'm gonna just admit this because it's distracting. She was still a high schooler and I was in college, so yeah. she got me when my first girlfriend broke up with me. And, but anyways, I was taking a shower over there because I was going on some kind of family outing with them, and I used to crash on their couch because she lived super far away from me. Anyways, I don't want to get into all that. I'm embarrassed by it now. And then, I was embarrassed by it then. I thought it was alright because she was religious and we weren't going to sleep together, but it's still weird. And I didn't sleep with her till she was 19, so... now that I got through all that TMI stuff... Anyways, her stepdad was super tall, and he had a drawer full of razors. And so I thought... I thought it would be funny if he was secretly a Bigfoot, and that he just shaves himself down every day. And that's why he's got a drawer full of razors. And so then I started adding the other stuff to kind of exaggerate it. One of my things that I still kind of struggle with is I don't like everything being spelled out for me in a story. I like figuring stuff out. And but the trick on that is you need to make it so people understand it, and they think it, and they're along with the story needs to be interesting even if they don't get everything. And so, like, I was hoping I did that with this. Oh yeah, this was like one of my kind of hallmarks later. At least I thought maybe when I go through my old work I won't. But doing different angles, and I just felt like this low angle made it feel kind of isolated. I don't know if it works. I don't know why it says creepy. Is that the name of that page? It's weird that it does that. Is that like a comment? No. Huh. I can't believe I would have named the page creepy. Oh! Comics Fury has it so you can put a rollover text. Yeah, and so I did that on purpose. Okay. I haven't uploaded any webcomics in a long time, so I forgot I had that. Anyways, so here's some bad perspective. Yeah, I just... and these plants, unlike the flowers earlier, these were probably referenced because I probably drew this in my at my work. Because I used to crash at my print shop all the time when I was at art school. Because I went to art school in Chicago, and my grandfather worked or he owned a print shop, and so I would crash there all the time. And I used to draw a lot of my comics on the train and stuff, so I would like to blame some of my art on that, but it's not. See, I'm perfectly fine with this page. Like, this is the quality that I would like to reach every time. But there's this, like, the perspective is... It doesn't look like a style, it just looks bad here. Here, it looks like a style, even though it's not correct. I can tell it's off. Anyways, so then here's where I connect it to the main character. He's like our main character throughout the series. Okay, so he's like talking to that guy. Basically, the kind of connection to this guy in this is that is that the Bigfoot pays this guy off in hair because he's a supernatural creature, and so he can use the hair to create tinctures. Because I had read somewhere that tinctures for like spells could be made out of animal hair or blood and stuff, and so all the hair that this guy shaves off his body every day gets collected in like trash bags. I was gonna do an issue where they actually get like a truck to pick up all the hair, but I never got to that point with the series. And then here's where the joke is that it's supposed to reveal you know, let's see. So this is where it ties together the text with the subtext where she's thinking about sleeping with this guy, and that the subtext being that she doesn't realize he's a Bigfoot, and that, you know, I look down and remember that they also say something about a man with a really big foot. So that's how I tied those two things together. I still think that's kind of clever. I don't know if it works, because I don't consider how I look at things normal. Man, he looks really... It's supposed to be like perspective, but it doesn't... I'm still sort of okay with this. I don't know. It's interesting to look back at my old work and see how little I've changed in some way. But and also see how like my thought process is on it. It's kind of interesting looking at it a decade later. Anyways, so that one kind of dealt with the race thing. This was another... This one might have actually been the first story I did. And it's basically these firefighters show up, and there's a female fire chief who I later decided, when I drew this, I did not think, oh, this is the character that we meet later. I got the idea like at least 25 pages into the book, that this is the character that we meet later as Sarah. It's just earlier when she was like in a fire department, she ends up quitting. But anyways, all the male firefighters rush out of the firehouse, even though they didn't know that there was a fire at the time. And then the character Ektep shows up. I was playing with doing gradients just so everything wouldn't be so flat and it'd be a little more interesting. I'm trying to think for this. I think at this... I don't know if I built this in a 3D model based on photos, or... because it looks really straight. And I'm not great at 3D, so I think I tried... I think I tried to do that. I'm not sure. I know that, like, back then, you know, I could go on Webcrawler and look up stuff and pull up really tiny... The bandwidth was so shitty that people did not upload high-quality pictures, and so I was working from really low-quality pictures to put this together. It was a huge pain in the ass. It's kind of funny, now that images are more readily available, I'm probably spending a lot less time on getting reference material. Now that I could actually look this shit up. Like, back then, I had to kind of make it up myself. So, that's a bad tangent. I should have moved that over. Damn. Yeah, that's bad. I don't know if I tried to do a previous take on this, and decided to start over. I don't know if I mentioned this, that I had reworked a lot of these files, and then the images got lost, so I reworked a lot of them. No, wait, never mind. That doesn't apply to this. This is just early work, so... Yeah. Here's me doing my little... It's kind of funny, because I haven't read a whole lot of manga, but I like to do a lot of... This is like a very Japanese thing, to kind of focus on a aspect instead of a moment, I guess. Yeah, so... I don't know. There's some good things going on here. He's running up the ladder. I don't know how much that's conveyed that that's running. He jumps off the firefighter's head. Yeah, I like this action sequence. Anyways, go back. Shot the arrow to crack the glass. And then he pumps through the glass and lands. And so at this point you might think that the character's kind of a hero. I don't know. That was the idea I was going for, is you think he's like a superhero. And this is where I'm going into his memories. He's talking about, this is absolutely true, that back in the day before the cities ran fire departments, they were all private companies, and if more than one private company showed up at a time, sometimes the two companies would get into fist fights over who got to put out the fire, and the whole building would burn down while the firefighters were brawling. So that's why we don't have privatized fire departments anymore. And that's why it's, government stepped in, is because of that happening. Anyways, So you think he's rescuing this girl, and then he bites her fingers off, and it turns out that she's a siren, and he's not a superhero. He just eats supernatural creatures, and he doesn't actually care if they're good or bad. So she was a siren. Wait, there we go. Previous. She's a siren, and she was luring those firefighters to their death, and so he's gonna eat her. Anyway, so that's so now we're gonna move on to what I really wanted to talk about, and in the title it will probably say something about representation or race. I haven't figured out what I'm gonna call this episode, but here we are. This is me playing with a visual thing. It's like a sound wave, and then it turns into his teeth. Yeah. And I'm going over the idea of the series, which is that he's an immortal, and his brain is full of memories because he has a perfect memory, but he's gotten too old. Okay. And so this is where I was, why I wanted to talk about race with the beginning of this, and I kind of wanted to just get some ideas about race off my mind anyways, because I think about this shit a lot. And I had some people compliment me that I drew black people well when they saw this. I'm having a hard time seeing it right now. Maybe there's a page in here that look pretty good. Let's see here. So, and there's also a gender aspect of this, so it fits with representation, not just race. So the idea of this is that the scenario I'm setting up is I was playing with superhero motifs again. Here, there's the idea is this girl's walking alone in like a black neighborhood, and the idea is that you're supposed to think that she's going to be the victim, and then I'm playing into this classic thing, and she's actually there to kill one of them, which is still a great idea, or I still like kind of that scene, but where I kind of messed up was like, I decided that, so I had this perfectly reasonable idea, and then I decided, oh, there needs to be action here, so I gave them guns too, and I have a reason in the plot for it and stuff. But it never occurred to me that I was at the time that I was reinforcing the very stereotype that I was trying to undermine with this idea. And it's just because comics take so much time that it wasn't until I got to this page that I was like, oh, maybe I should have them have a gun too and then have a shootout instead of just having it so Ektep rescues the black guys from the scared white lady. Yeah, so because I just decided, oh, it needs more action, so I stepped it up. I'm still making this mistake to a degree, because in Cyberpunks, there's a couple things I have in there that I'm like, maybe I didn't really need to have this, but I wanted to have an action scene at this point, and so maybe this stuff should have came up later, but, I wanted to have action scenes, so if anybody flipped through the comic, they're like, oh, okay, it's not just talking. Alright, here's another good thing where I draw inanimate objects great. I like my style when it comes to inanimate objects. It's just when I start drawing people and scenery in that I suck. So I make great list comics, which I'm sure I'll go into to a degree. That's in a different episode. We'll try to focus on representation. So yeah, that's why I wanted to talk about here. And it turns out that one of the black guys is a shapeshifter, and that's the reason he's here. And then this is Ektep remembering all the faces he's been over the years, including right here. And I tried to get a little diversity in there too. Look at that. So yeah. So anyways, yeah, I was when I was working on this stuff, I was when I was writing this, I was in an interracial relationship. So and also around this time, I have a friend who, he's basically like a foster brother. I never thought about him that way until recently. I mean, he was just our friend who crashed on our couch like when I was in junior high, my older sister had a friend that he was basically homeless that she went to high school with, and so she asked if he could crash on our couch, and so anyways, he's like basically an older brother to me, which makes it weird because my interracial relationship was I was dating his sister. Like, it wasn't until I started like thinking about this later that it seems messed up when I'm explaining, but yeah. So, and I live in Missouri now, so I dated my brother's sister in Missouri. But yeah, I didn't really think about it that way until recently when when all these discussions of race come up, I have to explain to people like my relationship with him, and one day I realized I was like, oh, he's basically my foster brother. But anyways, the reason he comes up and why I was kind of dealing with this stuff at the time especially is that I'd been pulled over by the cops for having him in my car because we'd go to role playing together, and they would, even though I was the one driving, the cops had all the questions were for him, and they didn't let us go until I was like, I'm starting to wonder what this is really about, and then they're like, they just let us go at that point. They're like, you have that. So anyways, the reason I wanted to talk about these particular pages is because, and talk about race a little bit and representation, is that the idea that I just I'm a white guy, and so there's going to be missteps in representation. So this is I don't know, even this is kind of bad. I always thought the scene was great. They kind of laugh at him for having the bucket of water dumped in his face, because I guess it's like I had this this is like very much, I like to call this my David Lynch comic, and I guess in a lot of ways all my comics is because I get these ideas for scenes sometimes, and I'm not really sure how they fit like plot wise, but I'll like shoehorn them in later, and so I just had this scene in my head, so this is where he gets the bucket of water dumped in his head, and everybody thinks it's funny until he turns around, and he's all like freaked out by his appearance because his makeup is coming off. This was always intended to be colored, and there is a color version of it, but I lost the files for that, so I just rescanned it and relettered it and then didn't redo the coloring. Actually, I kind of, even though previous, and even though I kind of like this is before the black guys react memes were going around, which I have kind of mixed feelings about. But, white people using memes of black people going, whoa, and shit. Like, I don't know. Is that racist, kind of? Like, yeah, it's kind of like, is that a celebrating our differences thing? Or just, or is it, I don't know, exploitive? I don't know what term I'd use for it. But anyways, so they're all laughing because it's like this intense moment, and then all of a sudden, this like scary guy just dumps a bucket of water on their friend, and then they see his face is melting, and some Joker in the Tim Burton flick reference to Batman when the Joker gets Vicky Vale dumps water in his face and his makeup runs. Yeah, so anyways, more of me. Oh yeah, this is really painful to look at now. So anyways, he asks for the gun. The guy throws him the gun. I don't know who would ever throw a gun, but I don't know. At the time when I was 20 or 22 or whatever, I thought that'd be like a cool moment. I thought this was kind of funny. Oh, look at this. Ooh, yeah. Yeah. I forgot that I was, I've stepped back from this a lot. This is something I've kind of struggled with in Cyberpunks too, is that, I want the characters to have a voice. Oh, this is funny. In Cyberpunks, I gave a guy cornrows because I thought that I never drew a character with cornrows before. And I totally did. That's hilarious. The other reason I gave him cornrows in Cyberpunks is because I realized that like 4 characters were bald, and so I was like, somebody needs to have hair. So yeah, because all my characters were kind of looking samey because they're all bald. Anyways, I like this panel on this character. I don't know, he reminds me of somebody I've seen in real life. I've always liked that panel, but like a lot of the other ones don't look good. And no backgrounds. Yeah, I don't leave a lot of room for backgrounds, really. I don't know. I mean, that's probably plenty of space for a background. That's one of the things in my style that kind of creates problems with me for creating backgrounds and stuff, is I like to fill the field with the characters, and that kind of messes with setting up backgrounds. I also drew these really small. These are like half the size. These are all done on like a half a piece of paper. The paper's a little bigger than normal, but not by much. So it's like a 10 by 13 piece of paper or something like that. Oh yeah, here's another thing here. So I use the word nigga, and one of the things you kind of struggle with is being sensitive to race, but then not shying away from reality. And so I don't know if this is a choice I'd make now. I haven't in a while because it didn't really call for it. But like I said, I ended up this is the part that I remembered being kind of bad, is that I ended up killing all the guys that I wanted to be sympathetic. Like, so I really, so even though the whole idea of the scene was to flip the tables on this like racial narrative that keeps getting reinforced by the media, I really stepped back into it, you know, and probably for a lot of the reasons that it is an issue. Oh yeah, here's one of the things where this was always meant to be colored. The character has a hickey that starts to fade when she gets the healing magic. I don't know if I ever explained this later in the comic, but like this is why it had to be colored originally, because of the whole hickey thing. So, all right, and later we'll look at the color versions of these comics, but I didn't want to get into some of the ideas with that. Oh, and one thing I'll note too is another thing I was doing at the time. The reason why these are formatted wide is because our screens are wide. And so at the time, I was really like ahead of the curve on that, because a lot of people still make their webcomics regular format. So at the time, I was not worried about print at all. I wanted these comics to be read wide, and this is the format that it was meant to be. I always really liked this panel, and I thought that it was going to lead to me creating like a style based around it, and that this was... it reminds me of an artist, but I can't think of who. So, I don't know, I really liked this, and I thought this is where my style would be. And my style has not changed much at all, and my drawing has not improved much at all as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so... yeah, and then, so not only, so I'm like tripling down because he's like killing this guy in kind of a horrific way. And these are supposed to be the characters you're like sympathetic with. So I would never, I wish I had thought this through more at the time, but like, you know, I mean, some of it is because culturally we've changed a lot on the discussion of race, and in other ways we haven't, so I'm going to back it up because I think this is going to be the end of where I talk about that stuff. Yeah, so, yeah, like I said, I really undermined the whole point of this section was because it was supposed to be that you set up the scene in a stereotypical way, and so you think these black guys are dangerous and this girl walking alone is in trouble, and it turns out that they're just hanging out and that she's the problem. And I didn't realize till much later. It was before I ended the series, so it's not like I just realized it recently. It is worse than I remembered it being. But I end up playing into those things because one of the things we struggle with as cartoonists is that we do caricatures of life as like a mental shortcut, like so people know what things mean fast. I'm just going to go first, and just so visually there's something going on. Yeah, so we do these like shortcuts in order to convey things to the audience fast, but then at the same time we end up reinforcing stereotypes and ideas, you know, and so that's kind of a problem. And then also on the representation thing, one of the ideas I wanted to talk about is that, like, because I made these missteps, you know, that doesn't mean I shouldn't have black characters in my comics. Like, that would be weird to have no black characters in the comics. And then, you know, and so we want to see more representation, and we don't want, but at the same time, you know, that's why we don't want just guys like me making comics. We want to have different directors and or different artists out there. I said directors because Black Panther just came out like a few months ago, or just last month. No, it's a few months now because I'm in April. Yeah, so that's so my first little story here isn't so bad. I mean, I guess maybe there's a stereotype that black women are like hornier or something, but yeah, I don't think this character is especially horny. She likes a guy and she's thinking about sleeping with him. I don't know if this is their first. Did I say it was like wasn't their first date? I don't know. Like I said, I only slept with one person at this point, so you know, what the fuck did I know about it? And then here, I thought I was being super progressive because I have a female fire chief. But actually, see, I wasn't being like overtly about it. It was important that the fire chief was female because she's wondering why all her guys like left in the middle of the night, you know? And like I had this whole backstory idea for this character too, that she grew up in a very Chicago fire department neighborhood, you know, where all the people. I have her say later that she's got 13 brothers, and what it really is that she grew up on a block where everybody's a firefighter, and so she grew up with all these boys who are sons of firefighters. So I had like this whole backstory kind of figured out for her. Yeah. Oh, and another thing I could talk about a little bit on this, process-wise, is that my oh, maybe that's how I did this. Okay, so my style on these particular comics, I'm like 90% sure I drew this I built some kind of 3D model for this, but I don't know what program I was using. Oh, I might have still had my Creative Suite at the time. I had Poser. I'd gotten Poser, Bryce. Yeah, I might have built this in Bryce 3D. Okay. Anyways, so what I was trying to do on this to speed up the process is I would do my sketches. I would do my pencil sketches to do the layouts, and then I scanned them, and then I tried inking them with a mouse. And so I think I did that on these pages. And I gotta say that if that's how I did this, it really, like, I thought it looked way different than my... Wait, I'm like... I don't think that's what I did on this page. Or at least this panel. Because, like... I don't know, I think I have the physical drawing of that somewhere. And plus, where would this come from? I don't know, at some point I did try drawing that way. Yeah, maybe not. I know on here I reversed it to make it look better. It looked... But I obviously didn't know how to fill things in right. Oh, that's some crazy perspective. Yeah, that's super loose. Yeah. Yeah, I like how I made her, like, she's supposed to look surprised here, but she looks, like, way too calm. I think this might have been a poser model. That doesn't look like my regular drawing. Yeah, I think I tried doing... And poser was shitty at the time. I've got other work I did later in a later version of poser, and it looks a lot better. Like, people can't even tell that I used poser to make it. The lettering is better than I expected it to be. Oh, wait. That's because I did this lettering later. I did this lettering in, like, 2010 when I redid the book, because it was super low quality. I think I might have even... I think when I lost the... No, I just lettered this in, like, 2010. And there's, like, something wrong with my word balloons. They're still not great, but they're better than I was doing at the actual time. Yeah. And of course, I'm using... This font was not that popular when I used it originally, and then it got, like, super popular later. Oh wait, no, I'm thinking of the Papyrus. That's not Papyrus. Yeah, I'm thinking of a different font. But anyways, so, oh yeah, I guess we should talk a little bit about the women represented here. This one's a monster. I don't really see... I think it'd be a stretch to say that there's a problem with the women in this to begin with. I do have a thing later that comes up where the woman here with the gun, she... wow, you can't see that hickey at all, really, on this. Anyways, the woman here, she becomes, like, our point of view character. And that was, like... So, there was some issues that I was kind of dealing with here, too, where later she's naked. I should try to look for those. We'll get to it. But, I didn't try to do anything, like, overtly sexual with her. You know, like, the more, like, why I show her naked later is just to show I wasn't afraid of it. I'll talk about that when we get to those pages more. But, yeah, so that's the semi-embarrassing thing where I kind of fucked up my own message here by adding guns, because when I wrote it, that was, like, totally what I was thinking, and then when I actually got to this part, I was like, I don't know, he shoots her in the hand, and then just, like, I don't know, I was like, this is kind of boring. I think now what I would, I don't know. I also wanted to make this guy like a villain, and so that's why he kills all them. To get back to this, where he, because he's trying to hide out from these vampire things, and so that's why he developed this. And so when his cover gets blown, there was absolutely no reason to really kill them. I guess I was just trying to show that he was kind of evil. Like, I wanted this series to be fucking dark. I did not want this he's our main character, he's fucking evil, like, all his enemies are evil. She's actually good, and she kind of gets roped into working for him later. So, I guess there's another gender dynamic thing where she's, like, his little employee. I did have an idea for bringing this series back, and who knows, maybe I will eventually. But, yeah, I have, like... This was never meant to end. I thought I was going to go on... Part of the reason it was called Weight of Eternity was because I thought I'd work on this forever. I thought I really created something that I could just work on forever. But, like, the reason I didn't stick with it is just, part of it was there was a lot of stuff in it that I just didn't think was as good as I hoped it was when I was creating it. And wanted to start over. Oh, there's where I'm showing her ass. Yeah. She, I don't know if she's the only nudity, if I only show female nudity in this comic. I don't think that's the case. I think I show other characters' nudity, but a lot of that was, I was very aware of not being prudish. And I don't think there's a gender disparity there. Because I was never, like, I used to always say at this time that I don't beat off to my comics. And so, So I don't think that's one of my problems, is doing overtly sexual things. We'll probably get more into a lot of gender stuff when I do crawlers, because that's a big issue in crawlers, but it's an intentional one in that. I was definitely trying to say something in there, and I think I did it right, because that was much later in life. I was still pretty young here. Before this, when I started off in comics, I've been drawing comics since I was 4, and my first comics were all my own creations, even if they were kind of like, they were all like basically Ninja Turtle characters with superpowers. So they're all mutant animals and stuff, and that's just because I like animals. And weirdly, I didn't stick to that as an adult. Like, I'm better at drawing animals than people, and I never thought to make a series where everybody's just a different animal. Like, I've never done that, like, cartoony thing. And I guess my mind just does, I always wanted to do like very real world stories, and it never occurred to me that you can do a real world story. But this is kind of blowing my mind right now. Because I still haven't really done anything like that, where just all the characters are animals just because they are, not like, you know, it's always been part of the plot and stuff. I'm very anal in my own way, and definitely on the writing end. Yeah, look at this. This is how little I did not want to fuck with this when I rescanned it, is I left all this shit in. Yeah, but anyway, so this is both the progression of the story, and a discussion on where my white maleness comes in my stories, where, you know, you want to have a diverse. We do need more voices, and we do. And everybody's going to make missteps on this, especially, you know, when we didn't have an internet culture like we do now. I made this comic before I had MySpace. Okay. Like, so this was pre-MySpace. That's how old this stuff is. Yeah. So, I think we'll call that it for this week. And, you can, you comment what you think of the comic. Maybe it's not as bad as I think it is, and I'm thinking too much about this shit, and or whatever. And so come back next week, and I'll try to find another topic that fits as we continue through the 100 or so pages of Weight of Eternity. And also, if you want to support this channel, I'm not doing a Patreon or anything. I have a comic for sale. It's called Cyberpunks, and it is on Drive-Thru Comics. And probably the best way to look is on my publishing page. And I'm also going to have other comics up here soon. And so until next time,